Greetings, everybody. I'm Larry Williams, the director of CARMA. That's a consortium for the advancement of research methods and analysis, now hosted at the Rawls College of Business at Texas Tech University. It is October the 5th, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another version of our CARMA Quick Chat, in which I take the opportunity to hang out a bit with somebody who's contributing to CARMA. And today it's a pleasure to be chatting with Aaron Hill, who's with us because he will be giving a webcast on November 18th. And if you don't know about our webcast program, this is a program through which we bring in, well, I say bring in, we bring into our Zoom room 10 distinguished management organization methodologists to give a webcast lecture that's made available live and in recorded form to faculty and students at our institutional member schools. We're celebrating our 25th year, so we have over 250 recordings dating back to 2004 that are available, and so you can find out more information about CARMA and the institutional membership program on the CARMA website. We're really excited to have Aaron with us. Aaron is an associate editor of the Journal of Management and also has been very active in the research methods community on the macro side, particularly with the Strategic Management Society. So Aaron, we're very honored to have you contributing a webcast and appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. I'm honored to be here and honored to be a part of it. So thank you.
Yeah. So, I come from a micro background, Aaron. And so for people coming in through that route, a lot of folks get involved in research through their psychology undergraduate training. And I'm always interested in how people on the macro side get involved in research. So what were some of your earliest experiences?
Yeah, I didn't really have any experience until I started the doctoral program in the fall of 2006. I had some broad interest, and I talked with some faculty members. I went to Gonzaga University as an undergrad, so your former colleague Matt Rutherford was one of my professors. So I kind of talked to him. Hey, their life looked pretty good. I was kind of a curious person, but I didn't have any formal training, no labs, no. So I'm actually kind of surprised I was admitted to a program, but they got us started that fall right away.
Yeah, it's kind of tough for folks coming in from that particular way, because a lot of times, thinking about research, the way that we think it's going to be turns out to be a lot different than what it actually turns out to be. But Matt's a great guy and a dear friend, and so I'm sure he got you oriented in the right direction. So I was looking back through your publications and noting that actually your first publication has to do with reliability, but then you got involved in unobtrusive measures. So how did that interest in unobtrusive measures get started, and do you still have that type of interest today? Has it carried through your research?
Yeah, it really kind of emerged with my research interests and training. So as you said, a lot of the methodologies come out of micro initially, and the methods courses that I took were taught by micro-leaning people. I had one of your former students, Mark Gavin, was very instrumental in my training. Craig Wallace also came out of psych. But I was interested in executive research. So as we're kind of talking about ideas in class or presenting papers where you at least sketched out the methods or maybe wrote the methods, the micro-leaning faculty often pushed back in a good way on the validity of some of the approaches, measures that were used in executive research. So the interest really came out of coalescing of trying to address their validity concerns and trying to advance my own research on executives. So it was really somewhat serendipitous. I didn't go into it thinking, hey, I'm going to think about unobtrusive measures, but there's a context of executives that are maybe hard to apply surveys to, but we still have this interest. So how can we get at these constructs and mechanisms at least as closely as possible?
Yeah. Well, in addition to having an interest in unobtrusive measurement myself, I also, of course, am tracking the experiences that people have had with COVID, and particularly am interested in the impact that COVID had on researchers and how they have adapted their research and their approach to research and different aspects of their research because of COVID. And I know you've done some writing in that area. Can you tell us a little bit about what we know about the changes that researchers made?
Yeah, I would say at least on the macro side, and in studying executives, two things have happened. One, we're seeing executives a lot more in the public sphere. And some of that's just technology is advanced, but also some of it is this was a major event that put them in front of the public eye. So it gave us a new context and also a new data sources to draw inferences, whether it's the words they're using, the tenor of their speech, the frequency of their speech, etc. So COVID really emerged as an opportunity for data. It also emerged as an opportunity to kind of use the exogenous shock. I mean, some people maybe said, hey, they could see a pandemic coming, but I think by and large, most people didn't foresee COVID becoming what it became. So it gave us a nice opportunity for regression discontinuity designs that could address some, alternative causal mechanisms are ruled out in some ways, in that most firms experienced, some negative impact of COVID. So you could use that as a nice context. So I think it's really a nexus of those things. We're seeing executives more, which then gives us an opportunity to use that for measurement purposes. But it's also a context that I expect we'll see more leverage on type regression discontinuity designs going forward.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I know you've been involved with the research methods community within the Strategic Management Society. I remember being involved in some discussions with Don Berg and others as that was getting going. Would you say in general that interest has grown in research methods within the macro community?
I think absolutely. It's only been about 10 years that there's been a formal community in SMS. For those who are unfamiliar, like AOM, there's divisions. We call them interest groups in SMS. And the methods community only really emerged in 2012, 2013. And like AOM, those who are unfamiliar, your membership, you can sign up to a limited number of interest groups. And the last numbers I saw, almost 2/3 of SMS members are indicating that one of their groups is the research methods community. So that's a pretty shocking growth over the time span.
Yeah. Well, it looks like that's reflected in the program. I haven't been in a couple of years, but a perusal of the program shows there's a lot of different sessions that have to do with research methods topics. So, well, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're chatting with you today because of your upcoming webcast on November the 18th. Can you give us a little bit about how your interest in the topic emerged and share what you're going to be talking about with us on the 18th?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about multiverse analysis, which is a newer tool that's designed to kind of estimate and investigate the impact of researcher degrees of freedom. And this came about really in talking with several different people over time, but one has been Ernest O'Boyle. We have a connection through yourself and through Matt Rutherford. And Ernest obviously comes at things from a micro perspective, and I come at things from a macro perspective. So over time, we've talked about some of the issues that we face in macro and micro and ways we can kind of bridge and take insights from the other. And multiverse is one of those tools that, particularly on the macro side, and micro too. I shouldn't limit it to macro, but when you're designing a study, and many of us are using, say, data from CompuStat or Words, there's so many decisions that researchers make, and some of them change over time as the databases change. The number of firms that are in the sample will change as a firm restates. So how do we know that our findings aren't, for example, an artifact of the sampling period? How do we know they're not an artifact of different measures that are used to tap some of these constructs? Like, what is innovation? That's a tricky one to capture. So, if we use different measures, are we going to get the same result? Same with analytical approaches, random effects, fixed effects, mixed effects, etc. So the multiverse is essentially a technique to adjudicate some of these debates and identify where the sensitivity of an estimated relationship resides. Does it reside in a choice of measure? Does it reside in different sampling periods? And so what it's really doing is we're going to take the power of computing, which is just exponentially grown, and we can actually bake into our estimate those different theoretically driven researcher degrees of freedom. And we shouldn't put garbage in, garbage out. We shouldn't put incorrect estimators in the model or really poor measures. But we're going to use the tool to illustrate how you can maybe demonstrate robustness across different sampling periods, different measures, different analytical tools, even different model specifications. There's debates on, do we need control variables? Do we not? Here's a tool to actually just systematically run all the analysis, removing any single control variable, combinations, all of them. So we can run 2 million, 3 million models and get an estimated stability of that relationship. And so that's what I'm going to talk about, is how to use multiverse. I'll walk through an example of how to run it, and I'll try and illustrate the value that it can use in demonstrating robustness and reliability of our estimates.
Well, that sounds great. We at CARMA, we sort of our focus is very broad, supporting qualitative and quantitative, micro and macro, and we're always particularly excited when methods related that are focused for macro or that originate on the macro side, when we get the opportunity to share those. So we'll really be looking forward to your webcast on November 15th. And thanks for taking the time to chat with us today. And we'll see you in a few weeks then. And I'll see you at Little Rock.
That's right. I'll see you at SMA and Little Rock. And thank you very much, Larry. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Safe travels.
Thank you.